Oh,
all right. I would like to welcome all of the guests and candidates to the 2021 Lethbridge Mayoral Forum to discuss some of the issues that are important to people with disabilities in this municipal election. We are recording this session to be posted on our YouTube channel after the event. Before we start, I will pass it off to Amira to explain some of the technical aspects of the meeting.
All righty, thank you, Mogdan. So I'll briefly go over some of the features and controls in this webinar. We have live card captions being provided by Carol. Thank you, Carol. That you can turn on and off by clicking the CC or live transcript button on the far right of your Zoom control, so the bottom one. And unfortunately, we regret to inform you today that due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to secure ASL interpreters for this session. However, and we are deeply apologetic to anyone who relies on the service, but we will get someone to do an ASL overlay before we post the video on our websites as well as social media. If you have any questions for the audience, if you have any questions for the candidates, feel free to put them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, just to the left of the captioning button. And should you have any technical or accessibility difficulties throughout the event, please send a message via the chat, which is the first button on the left, and one of the people who is helping manage the event today will be able to assist you. On that note, we would first like to start the meeting by going over the land acknowledgement, and I'm just going to share my screen as well. Alrighty, so Alberta Ability Network gratefully acknowledges that what we call Alberta is a traditional and ancestral territories and gathering place for diverse Indigenous peoples. Through 45 First Nations and 140 reserves and subject to Treaties 6, 7, and 8, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations, the Nakota Sioux, Cree, Dene, Iroquois, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, and Inuit, whose languages, histories, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant communities. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis settlements, and the 6 regions of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we work, play, reside, or are visiting on. Back to you, Mogdan.
Thank you, Amira. This morning's event is being hosted by 2 provincial organizations who bring the voice of people with disabilities into conversations like this that brings attention to the lived experience so that leadership is aware of the disability lens when making decisions affecting their constituents. The areas that we focus on are the responsible of all 3 levels of government, and today we are focusing on the city of Lethbridge and inviting you both to speak on the areas of accessibility and answering questions that we have received from your constituency. So the guiding principles of the 2 organizations, Alberta Ability Network, is a collaborative of stakeholders, people with lived experience, and those who support them, health practitioners, community advocates, and government that strive to address systemic barriers facing persons with disabilities, strengthen the disability sector, and influence policy and decision-making. Voices of Albertans with disabilities are committed to breaking down barriers which prevent society from seeing beyond our disabilities so that we are all included in aspects of life. They will take charge of the social, political, and economic decisions that affect daily lives. They must be accountable for actions, choices, and services and supports that their persons with disabilities require, and we acknowledge and accept the dignity of risk. Accessibility, all buildings and facilities must be accessible, transportation information and communication services must meet our diverse needs. And equity, we must be vigilant to ensure that our rights and freedoms are upheld. We claim our right to be equal while maintaining our individuality. So now we will allow the candidates to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Mr. Klassen, and you'll have a minute, and then Mr. Mogdan. give us a little update and just a little bit about yourself.
My name is Gary Klassen, and I'm running for Mayor of Lethbridge. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for hosting this forum, the Alberta Ability Network. I've lived in Lethbridge and Coldale all my life. I started school here and I graduated here. I'm married and I have 2 wonderful children. My father and I started a sand and gravel trucking company over 22 years ago, and I learned lots about businesses and people at that time. When that ended, I started real estate, and I'm a realtor right now, and I've been a realtor for 29 years. I volunteered over numerous years, and I was a member of the Coldale Police Commission. I was the team leader for the Sunrise Community Church for their worship team. I started a motorcycle club in Coldale. This same club started the Temple Hill motorcycle track, which is still in existence today. My cousin Eric and I started an archery club, which we taught youth and adults how to shoot archery properly. We did that for 15 years. I even taught a season of motorcycle trading at the college. I was vice president of the Galt No. 8 Mine Society, and currently I'm president of the Coldale Custom Cruisers Motorcycle Club, and we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. This is an awesome club and it's fun to be in. I also am a member of the Fort Ropa Black Powder Club. My wife and I shoot black powder, and to tell you the truth, she actually shoots shotgun better than I do, but don't tell her that. But most importantly, the community spirit I've gathered by being a part of it is my wealth. From forming a plan to following through, I've been organizing community spirit for years.
Thank you. Mr. Mogdan.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you here and the attendees. Not sure how many we have, but also to anyone who will be viewing this later on. I have a few similarities, I think, with Gary, also running for mayor, of course, and that's why I'm here today. Also have 2 children, so my story is that I actually grew up in Calgary and have lived in Calgary, Edmonton, and Lethbridge in Alberta. I've been here in Lethbridge for the last over 20 years. I practice as a lawyer at Stringham Law here in Lethbridge, and that's what brought me to Lethbridge, family and work, and have been here ever since, because Lethbridge is a pretty great community, I think, to live and to raise a family. I'm married, actually my wife and I celebrated our 24th anniversary yesterday, and we have two children. They're 19 and 17, so we could be empty nesters fairly soon. I through my professional life and through my family life, I certainly have some affinity with and some exposure to people with challenges and disabilities. My youngest is actually on the autistic spectrum, and so that's made our lives interesting and wonderful in its own particular way, but certainly gives you some insights into things that people face. And practicing as a lawyer also provides you with an opportunity to help people that deal with challenges in their daily lives, whether that's dealing with an employment issue, housing issues, sometimes human rights type issues, and so yeah, that's kind of where my life has intersected with sort of this sphere. I think that it's important that our community be as welcoming and inclusive as possible. I think when we do that, we overcome problems better, we succeed better when we all feel that we have a place to belong and a place that is not judgmental and that supports us. And so that's what I'm looking to bring to the table as part of my platform, if you will, running for mayor. And that's why I'm certainly delighted to be here today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we're glad you're here. So I'll just pass it over to Amira. So Amira Kasari is the bones behind Alberta Ability Network, making everything run smoothly, and is definitely an addition to these seminars and forums we're having. So Amira, I'm going to turn the fun part over to you.
All righty, thank you. So now we will allow all the candidates to address the questions, and the questions, as you can see, they are on the screen that I'm currently sharing on the three main issues that we have heard from community members. Those are accessible and affordable housing, poverty reduction, and accessible and affordable transportation. And if time permits, then we will go to the audience questions as well. So I'll start with the first question, and if you may please respond in the order in which you introduced yourself, that would be greatly appreciated. Many people have expressed that there are gaps in the affordable housing, whether that be the disconnect of income from age and rental prices, or that there are few places that are accessible and affordable. How would you incorporate accessibility and affordability for persons with disabilities into Lethbridge's broader housing strategy? So we'll start with you, Mr. Klassen, please.
Well, with the housing situation, we need to build new residents rather than renovating the old residents. It's a lot cheaper and more affordable to be building new. We need to take advantage of the designers and encourage them to incorporate easier accessibility into all their plans. Everyday living, no matter, regardless of the mobility. Affordable housing is another issue. Let's just work on it, because it's a whole situation on affordable housing.
Thank you, Mr. Klassen. Same question for you, Mr. Mogdan, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. So I think we need to start by making sure that we are providing adequate support for groups in the community that help those with challenges find housing. I think of things like SACLA, for instance, where they're providing residential options for people that deal with disabilities or have challenges with housing and sort of fitting into daily living. So that's number one. The affordability of that is always going to be a challenge, quite frankly. I mean, we've certainly seen some pressure on the city budget in the last little while, but it's something that our city needs to continue pressing the province for, making sure that we are getting dollars that we can use to help support those agencies. And within our budget, we need to make sure that we are, prioritizing that. The reality is we need to have places for people to live. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be affordable. And you have to work on that. It just doesn't happen, right? Also, as a city, we need to make sure that our development plans make sure that we are promoting the ability to provide lower cost housing options. So you think of things like multi-unit developments, where some neighborhoods don't like to see that, right? You'll find developers that will chafe against having to follow requirements to provide multi-unit, multi-family housing. But that's really something that, as a community, we need to make sure that we are making that a reality and keeping that top of mind. So I mean, that's a zoning issue. With our municipal development plan, I think it's placing a good focus on that moving forward, and we need to move forward in that spirit, right? We aside from that, it's going to be a kind of an ongoing struggle to make sure that we are providing funding and getting dollars from the province to allow us to do that.
Thank you both. We'll move on to the next question. We know that people with disabilities are more likely to live in poverty than those who do not have a disability. So the question is, how will you work to alleviate poverty for persons with disabilities specifically?
There's more work that needs to be done to address these issues and to set up a committee with active communities input. I feel that this is part of a gap. Let's work together to help each other out to fill these gaps.
Thank you, Mr. Klassen. Mr. Mogdan, please.
Yeah, so poverty reduction, always a difficult topic to try to make headway on, but a critical topic to make headway on as a city. So I think number one, so you're going to see two sides of that issue traditionally. One is reducing costs that are faced by people with disabilities and with challenges. Whether that's housing costs, transportation costs, that type of thing. You need to work on reducing those costs as much as possible. On the other side, it's a kind of a supply and demand type thing. You need to, as best you can as a community, work with agencies to identify opportunities for meaningful employment for people. Alongside that, I think the city's role can be critical in educating the wider populace and employers about the benefits of being able to provide employment opportunities for those who face challenges. I mean, you think of things like the dedication that you get from employees who may have challenges, but if they're provided with employment opportunities that work well for them, that they feel welcome at, you're going to have a very dedicated and very stable employee, and that's something that I'm not sure all that many employers really appreciate that the way that that they could, and I think the city can certainly help in doing that. Again, providing funding to service providers that help people to become engaged in employment, and I think the city can play a pretty crucial role in trying to find ways to fill gaps. Right? I mean, in my daily life, I come across or I deal with recruiting agencies on a fairly constant basis, and they're always looking for available options to fill employment opportunities that might not be full-time, that might be sort of stopgap or temporary, that type of thing. But those are opportunities that if we could marshal those and organize them effectively, I think that could be a real benefit to people that are able to be employed with the appropriate accommodations, and by doing that, we certainly hope to lift people out of poverty, right? Give people the tools to try to do that. I mean, past that, you need to be looking at continued advocacy with the province, with the federal government, trying to find those dollars that will allow us, to fund those programs, to make that a reality in our community.
Thank you to both of you. And we'll move to the third question. There are many challenges in transportation, such as restrictive scheduling, changes in service, affordability, and access. So the question is, how would you manage Lethbridge transit system and policies to address the transportation challenges faced by persons with disabilities?
Currently, and unfortunately, we won't know until next year the full extent of poverty due to COVID crisis that has added to this problem. With the affordability for transportation and Access-a-Ride has been a very good system for us to use. I know there's been no problems that there's been people that can't afford to use all these different systems. We have the transit system, which is very good system that we have. We also have now the Access-a-Ride, which has 21 buses and 36 operators, and they run over 264 days a year. These services are limited to evenings, weekends, and non-statutory holidays, but they do provide over 700 trips on a regular day. So they're doing their best to get that all together. But we need to talk with the people that need to use Access-a-Ride and find out what the issues are that they need to improve on.
Thank you. Mr. Mogdan, please.
Thanks. And I think the issue goes a little bit wider than just the Access-a-Ride, which, you know, certainly that's an important service. But, you know, when you're dealing with you know, persons with challenges and disabilities, you know, that's on a spectrum, right? And some people will have more ability as opposed to less ability. So you're going to have to take a pretty hard look at what the overall transit system is doing, not just Access-a-Ride. We've seen, you know, we've moved to this the CityLink system about a month ago now, I guess it would be, because we're just about a month ago. And you know, you're starting to see a lot of feedback from that, and it doesn't sound from that feedback like the system is working as well as the city, I think, hoped that it would work. And so I think we need to take a very hard look at that and make sure that we are making the adjustments that we need to make. I think some of those adjustments are going to be kind of fine-tuning adjustments, but I think some of them may require a bit more of an overhaul on that. You know, past that, the affordability portion is, I mean, to me, that's not just an affordability issue, that's an accessibility issue. If something is otherwise accessible, but you can't afford it, then that's not really something that is accessible to you. So we need to make sure that we are, you know, making transit fees, the cost to use transit needs to be well within the ability for even our most challenged people and those struggling with poverty to be able to access that. You know, I think we've seen in Lethbridge a fairly dedicated group of critics, I'll say, that, you know, they criticize our transit system a great deal, and they do it on the basis of, you know, a perceived lack of ridership and too much cost for the system. But in my view, I think that's the wrong way to approach transit. I think transit needs to be something that is less of a cost concern and more of a public service concern. That's something that we need to have available to people. You can't have barriers to accessing that type of thing. And currently, I think the you know, the uncertainty around the changes to the system and cost factors, I think are probably keeping people from fully accessing that system. And I don't want to see that. I mean, that doesn't help us. That doesn't get people to you know, the employment that they need to get to. That doesn't help people get to go see their friends or their family, their loved ones. It doesn't allow people to, you know, get to places to, you know, exercise, do recreation, participate in, you know, entertainment, cultural activities. You know, there's so much that comes from being able to move around, right? And some people tend to take that for granted, right? If you're not dealing with that issue on a semi-regular basis, you don't worry about, you know, how long it takes you to wait for a bus or how far you have to walk to get to that transit option. How, you know, you don't worry about if your trip is going to take you, you know, 90 minutes to do, because you're just driving there. And in Lethbridge, you're 12, 15 minutes away from pretty much anything. So we need to take a good hard look at that as we move forward. And that's certainly one of my main components of my my focus as running for mayor. Sorry, that was a bit longer than.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
We had allotted an hour for this because I was mentioning to Mr. Klassen prior to you joining us that we've invited all of the mayoral candidates and we were graced by the both of you, and we thank you for that. people with lived experience or people affected with disabilities, we're part of the community. And those were our formal questions. And I won't put anybody in the spot, but I do have a little bit of maybe information I want to hear from you for the Alberta Ability Network. We're an initiative of Cerebral Palsy Alberta. And so we have members throughout the province. And we were very involved with Lethbridge in a regional Lethbridge hospital and all the areas in between servicing our members. But for both of you, I'm just, how much are you aware of the challenges facing people affected with disability in your community? Like how can you tell, are you able to share with us just from your observation? I mean, running for mayor is not an easy thing to do. There's a lot that you need to learn, and I admire anybody who wants to be in politics. I think we're all just a little burnt out from all the politicking that's happening. But how are you managing this, your candidacy in understanding the persons with disabilities? Because we're not special. We have unique needs, but we're your neighbors, we're your friends, we're at your church, we're at your clubs. How are you understanding our needs? Mr. Klassen, we can start with you.
Give me the first one, eh? Like the city has done a lot of work for people with disabilities. Like they've changed all the corners and stuff so that you can get off and on the sidewalks comfortably and carefully. Like I say, they've got the handy bus now, which picks up people for appointments and situations like that. But disabilities, not only just by wheelchairs and stuff. There's people that have, like you say, cerebral palsy, and they're harder to make their way through. So that, to me, the accessoride and the handy bus is a very good thing to have for this. And people that they want to be independent, but they still need help. So we have to work together to make it work for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Mogdan.
So it's kind of the age-old question of how well and how a person goes about understanding something that they themselves don't experience on a first-hand basis. And to that, I would initially respond by saying, it's up to somebody that is, an important part of the community and looking to run for office and be a leader in the community, to make sure that they are informing themselves of, the issues that people face, regardless of their, the walk of life that they come from in the community. If you're running for mayor, your city has to, in my view, has to include everyone, right? And so you have to try to understand people's experiences from wherever those might be coming from. More specifically, with respect to this issue, I have some some firsthand experience with with people with disabilities. Aside from my youngest that I mentioned at the top, I have a nephew who is 17, turning 18. He lives in Calgary, so their resources may be a little bit different than what we have available to us down here. But he is nonverbal. Never received a full diagnosis of what his challenges are, but he's the type of person that is not ever going to likely be very employable or able to live on his own without supports, and that is these are the people that if we're a caring community, if we're a caring society, we need to make sure that we are making life for these people livable and joyful, and as far as we're able to do that. And so watching that kid grow up, watching my nephew grow up and deal with those things has on one hand been difficult to watch, because you look at the things that he's not going to be able to experience, but on the other hand, it is joyful in the sense that he does love life. You do see it in his eyes and the things that he likes to do. You do see it when you take him to the park, and when he comes to your house and he hasn't seen you in a long time, and the first thing he does is hug you and kiss you, right? It's there's a lot of joy there, but those are the experiences that we need to make sure that we are helping people live their best life.
Absolutely. I'm going to put Margot Brenner on the spot. So Margot is Executive Director of Voices of Albertans with Disabilities, and she has members in Lethbridge and throughout the province. And Margot, I just thought, because we have such a captive audience, we can't click them off right now, that maybe you might want to share some of the issues facing our members across the province. And in Lethbridge, it's a large city, and I know you can do this on top of your head, but maybe you can just share with Mr. Klassen and Mr. Mogdan some of the challenges and barriers that our members do face in communities, whether it's in high level or whether it's in Lethbridge. And you'll kill me for this, right?
No, thank you, Mizon. We have been working out of Lethbridge since the 90s with the deaf and hard of hearing community specifically. We've had a board member from Lethbridge for about 12 years. I believe what she has done is she has brought the needs of people with disabilities in Lethbridge, and transportation being one of them. So I congratulate you for getting, I think you said 21 buses on the road and 39 drivers, because that is no easy feat. I do appreciate that you have transit issues and the low ridership, which I just moved from Red Deer, which is very much the same thing. We have a lot of critics, but what needs to happen with that is people need to understand that many people don't get to drive from point A to point B. I believe that some of the rural, and Lethbridge for me is more a small town like Red Deer, I mean, like, it's not 1 million people, has challenges because you're trying to meet across or a pan disability point of view, which means that only perhaps a few people are going to be using what appears to be an expensive service. But that is something that we're looking at right now, because we want all people to be included. I was going to ask you if your city hall or your city council meetings are accessible for all your consumers in Lethbridge. So do you have closed caption when you have Zoom meetings now? Do you have ASL interpretation for your city council meetings? I know that Red Deer wired their city council chambers so that people who are hearing impaired can fully participate. Has Lethbridge done anything similar to that in your city chambers or your city meetings?
I'm not positive on that. I'm not sure if they have that. I've been to quite a few city council meetings, and I didn't see anybody that was helping people with like deaf and stuff like that. I didn't have that. Stephen, have you noticed anything like that?
Honestly, Margot, I don't think that that City Council here has put those facilities in place. There may be closed captioning on the Zoom meetings, but I don't get a chance to attend those on a regular basis because it very much interferes with my current workday. But I've not seen an ASL assistant for any of those council meetings. So certainly, I think it's something worth bringing up. Like physical access is, and I know that's not maybe where your question was directed at, but we do have physical access, sort of barrier-free physical access to council chambers. But past that, I don't know that we have a whole lot of facilities in place to deal with those.
And Mizon, I know you don't want me to go on and on, but I do have a question for Lethbridge City Council. We have been in contact with Red Deer City Council because we've been trying to get an accessibility committee attached to the city of Red Deer, and we do have a couple potential candidates who are willing to work with us should they accept the position, should they get voted in. Does Lethbridge have an accessibility committee attached to the city of Lethbridge so that all areas of accessibility are looked at that are under the purview of the city of Lethbridge?
Who wants to answer that one? The city of Lethbridge has done a good job on making everything accessible. Like I say, they've got a great accessibility to come into the city hall itself and to go to the meetings. It's all good. So just that's what I see, because I've been to quite a few of the meetings lately to find out how the system's going to be run and how I can do to help it, because I'm not a politician, I'm a businessman. But like, I understand that people need to know what's going on, and people that need accessibility, it should be available all the time.
I do believe, Margot, that there is an accessibility committee that's attached to council. I don't know the name of it though, and I don't know who sits on it exactly, but I'm fairly certain that there is.
Thank you for the responses. I know that Medicine Hat is a really good example of how we can do a couple things. They've really been a leader in the accessible and affordable housing. Well, maybe I'm not sure about the accessible, but certainly about reducing the amount of homelessness. And I know that your proximity isn't that close, but very many things in common. And the other area that Medicine Hat has taken on in the last, I think, 12 years is to make sure that there's barrier-free environments and that are really quite, the advantages that they have the accessibility committee that belongs to the city of Medicine Hat. And so all of their events, all of the responsibility in the leisure centers and things that areas that the city is responsible for have met, I would say, moving close to a gold bar standard for a barrier-free design. So thank you.
Well,
We have another question on the chat by one of the participants. And it says, last night we saw a liberal minority government get elected. $10 a day childcare is huge for some disability families. If you are elected mayor, will you work with the provincial and or federal government on implementing the $10 a day childcare program?
Do you want me to start on this, Gary?
please, thank you.
So this to me is something that frankly is or should be a no-brainer. To me, any self-respecting advanced nation and advanced society should certainly be doing much better on childcare than we currently have been doing. And I think the $10 a day childcare plan is a good step in that direction. So to the extent that my platform as mayor would permit the ability to advocate for that, I certainly would. I've talked about it elsewhere on my campaign material and that sort of thing. The reality, unfortunately, in Alberta currently is that I doubt that our government provincially will be prepared to go that far. We see a lot of it's really a philosophical difference that our government provincially has and just doesn't want to support that. But to me, I think looking at it as a prohibitive cost is exactly the wrong way to look at it. What it does is it permits more people to be involved in our economy, and we all benefit when that happens, right? We unfortunately, and this is just kind of the way it is, but we unfortunately download a lot of those responsibilities for childcare on women in our society, and that's not fair. It's kind of like tying one hand behind your back as you move forward. And I'd like to see us, have all hands on deck. And I think having reliable, low-cost childcare would be, a huge step in that direction.
Amir, did you want to read or Sam, did you want to read the other questions?
I was just wondering if Mr. Klassen would like to.
Oh, sorry.
That
Yes.
question.
Yes, of course.
Well, I agree with Stephen. It's a pretty serious thing to have the $10 a day childcare. People that are in the lower poverty level, They need that to make things go for them. They need that to help make things so they can carry on with their lives, so they can afford to do more things with their children and things. That's basically.
Thank you. So as Sam has mentioned in the chat, we have a few questions that came through as people were registering for the event. And one of them is micromobility and your stance on the pilot that the city will be doing.
Yeah, can you explain that again, please?
So the question says micromobility and your stance on the pilot the city will be doing. I am not familiar with what the pilot is personally, but if anyone has more information, maybe they can share that.
I think it's referring directly to like they call them e-scooters, those sort of rentable scooters
yes,
that we approved. I myself think that that it's worth looking into. You see lots of other communities that do this. There are some drawbacks to it. There are, I think, a higher proportion of injuries that result from using these things. I think that's kind of a self-inflicted wound, so to speak. Pardon the expression, but I think you tend to see people that that will maybe have a little bit to drink and that sort of thing, and then think that this is a great thing to hop on this scooter, and then get in an accident or hurt themselves or what have you. But overall, I think the pilot project should go forward. Let's see what it looks like for Lethbridge. Maybe it would be really useful. We have a downtown core here that's fairly compact, but at the same time, if I want to get from here to where I am right now at my office to City Hall, I'm not walking there, right? So I'm driving or looking at taking transit, right? That doesn't really work very well, trying to get someplace when you're relying on a transit schedule and that sort of thing. So, in those circumstances, maybe that micromobility program, the e-scooter type option, maybe that would work really well.
Thank you. Mr. Klassen?
So question, Stephen, is where would those scooters be set up and located at? Would you have one closer to your office, or would you have them just downtown? Because
yeah, and I don't think they're specifically located anywhere. I mean, there might be a place where they originate, but I think the idea is you access it, and I think you do it like through a phone app, right, where you've got your payment information already locked onto a profile type thing, and so then you do that to access it, to get it to work, right, get the motor running or whatever. Look at me with all my in-depth technical knowledge, right? But then you take it to wherever you need to take it, and then you leave it there, right? And somebody else takes it from there and goes to wherever they need to go, and that sort of thing. What happens in terms of collecting them for I don't know, battery charging purposes or maintenance purposes or what have you, I don't know, honestly. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that, Gary.
Yeah, I know, like the system is if they turn around and let's say get it at the post office and take it to your office, let's say, then somebody that from your office has to go somewhere else. Let's say they're going to go to the bus depot. Okay, so then you've got it closer to back downtown. But what happens if nobody from your office? The only thing is next time you want to use it, then it's available for you to take from there, unless they pick them up and take them back to the main depot. That's the only thing I see with that. And there's going to be a cost on it. I don't know how much you're going to charge to use it, but some people might not be able to afford that. But some people, it'll be a good system to use. Let's say you're going from downtown to the mall. Then you go from, or let's say you start at the mall and you're going downtown. That's a quick little item to go downtown with, then take it back to the mall where your vehicle's parked. That's a good system on that. But it's got to be checked out and see what the cost efficiency on it is, if it's worth doing it. Like repairs, maintenance, and like you say, somebody starts abusing it. What are they going to go down the coulees and start, going crazy. That's a thing that you got to look at.
Yeah, I think there's a few ins and outs on it, and yeah, that's why you do a pilot program, right? Figure out, does it work well? If not, what are the issues? Can they be overcome? If they can, do we want to proceed forward with it? We'll see. Jury's still out on that, right?
That's true. I mean, that's the point. It is a pilot project, and you have to do that because no use buying a whole bunch of them and then they don't work, and you got a whole bunch of material left over.
Yeah, I don't think the city's buying them though. I think it's supposed to be a private provider.
There are independent companies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
We had a pilot in Calgary for 2 years, and we went through over a number of things, and Alberta Ability Network, we were very grateful that they actually were very receptive of our input in terms of how it might affect persons with disabilities. So that was great.
For sure.
And Amira, the last.
Yeah, we have another question. It says the need for supportive transitional housing for autistic adults in Lethbridge is massive. Can anything be done? Whichever one of you would like to go first, please do so.
Well, I mean, I agree, right? There is always going to be that need. People on the autistic spectrum will have greater or lesser abilities, right? Just to relate it back to my own personal experience, my younger son, who's 17, he has Asperger's, so he's on the autistic spectrum, fairly high functioning, but he's the type of person that may need some supports as he goes forward. That being said, you'll have other people that are further on that scale and will need more support. So I think the best place to start with those is those community groups that have that as their function, as their mission, to provide housing options for people that do have those struggles. You look at ASACLA, for instance. That's an organization that really, that's what they do. They provide those housing options. I want to say that they have something like 60 some odd residences in Lethbridge. I could be wrong on the details. I mean, don't quote me on that. But they provide those services as well as providing supports to the people that do live there, right? And those supports will take different forms. Some of those may need people coming in more regularly or less regularly into the home to help them with sort of activities of daily living and that sort of thing. Some may need more support in terms of helping them do a job application or get ready for an interview or that type of thing, right? So those organizations, I think, are the best equipped to try to figure out what exactly we need and how much of it we do need. That's not going to deal very well with the supply issue. And that's certainly something that we need to work on in Lethbridge. I think transitional housing, not just for people with, people who might be on the autistic spectrum, but, people that are recovering, for example, from say drug abuse, addiction issues. Those are people that, once you get to a certain stage of recovery, you need to have accessible transitional housing that provides you with a place to be, and you're not going to fall back into bad habits or that type of thing, hanging out with people that you may have hung out with before. And I think we have a dearth of those type of housing options in Lethbridge as well. We have to work with principally the province to make sure there's funding available for those, whether it's new construction, whether it's in some cases I think it can be existing housing that can be sort of repurposed, if you will, to those uses, but we have to keep working on that.
That's very good.
Yeah.
That's very, oh, sorry.
No, that's great. We weren't sure how to fill the hour when we had both of you attend, but it looks like we've been able to do that. In my meetings with mayoral candidates, I've been asking one question, it's not on the script. Should you be successful as mayor of Lethbridge and Margot or I or any of our constituents come calling, how would you be approaching us and in wanting to hear from us, the community? How open are you to that engagement? Because we were saying, we say nothing for us without us. And from both of what you're saying, you want us to be included. How would your first few days going when you get our letters for request of meetings? How are you going to prioritize that?
Gary, you want to go first or you want me to go?
I can hit this one first. I think if anybody wants to come and talk to me or anything like that about what's going on, I want to know from the constituents. I want to know from the people what I can do to help, what I can do to help you carry on with your life. If you have questions or concerns, I'll check into it, see what I can do, see what can be done, how we can help. That's the most important thing, is to listen to the people. That's the most important thing. And I will talk to you when the time comes, all of you.
I'd largely have to agree with Gary. I just wanted to say, first of all, if you need to fill the hour, always have a lawyer on the panel, because they'll just keep going, right? You know, I largely would agree with Gary on that. I mean, I think if you are leading a community, I think it's incumbent on you to listen to your residents and to do that in whatever ways you're able to do that. You know, I think we have a certain amount of criticism of council and our mayor in terms of not having enough, you know, forums to be able to express views to council. But we need to overcome that, right? We can't let that sort of guide how we proceed. We need to overcome that. If somebody approaches me, you know, I'm prepared to meet with them on anything. Now, there's going to be some circumstances where that might need to be tightened up. You know, if the person that comes to meet with you demands that they have, you know, garbage pick up on their street every 3 days, and we do it every second week, likely we can't make that accommodation. And you can listen to that person first time and respond to them, but ultimately you might not be able to provide a solution to that person, but at least you can listen and deal with their concern.
Thank you. And to take a page from COVID, we're all in this together. And I thank you both for taking time out, which I'm sure is going to be a very busy days coming up to the election. I wish you both success, and you will hear from us because we need you. So between the organizations that you have present here, we represent thousands and thousands of Albertans with disabilities. In all of this, we have some of the solutions for you. You have a question about our community, we have the solutions. We just need a platform to be heard. And this is people by lived experience. These are people who are living it every day. And we can save a lot of time in coming up with a solution, because somewhere it's been done before, and somewhere it is really reflecting on the fact that persons with disabilities are part of our community. And again, we do have unique needs, and we're willing to work with any government that is going to allow us to have a say and to help to guide. And so on behalf, actually, before I leave, I would just want to say thank you to Sam Mason, who is the guru behind all of this technical and setting up the webinars, and Carol for being here for closed captioning. Again, we want to be inclusive. And there's a great cost of doing this, but it's a commitment we as organizations in the community want to see happen. So again, on behalf of the Alberta Ability Network and Voices of Albertans with Disabilities, Mr. Klassen and Mr. Mogdan, the very best to you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. It's nice of you to do this.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.